Welcome back to the channel. It's Chillmonger. I'm here with Vonnell from Millennial Comics. If someone just discovered who you were, tell them who you are.
Vonnell Young from Millennial Comics, creator of the comic book series Delta Dogs, where basically seven cousins gain superpowers and next thing you know, they get trapped up in a gang war. It's an amazing comic book, man. Again, it's a comic book about cousins, which I don't really hear too much of at all. It's a black comic book, and man, it's all about the culture.
See, that goes without saying that it's a black comic book. I forgot to mention that. That's important. That's the thing. And when it comes to balance, your responsibility to portray a family that is cousins and have that positivity. However, you're also dealing with elements of a gang war. How are you going to tell your readers that we're not here to dig into the dirt and the mud and all that gunk that you're used to seeing from media? And how do you tell us, me included, that this cousin aspect of it is worth watching a story of gang?
Yeah, so the one thing that really makes this easy for writers like me is that it's authentic. It comes from us. It just really just talking about my personal experiences mixed in with the superhero stuff and whatnot. And you'll see that feel in the comic book where again we're not just fighting gangs, somehow we was kind of entangled with the gangs and stuff like that, and trying to make human like decisions rather than just kind of like that forced stuff that's been kind of being pushed nowadays, where say you have a let me not get into the touchy subject, but yeah, trust me, it's more authentic and more strategic of how the stories is being told, and everything has an actual reason to it versus again what's going on and on the outside of the pages that's being kind of like woke, if you want to say quote unquote nowadays.
I know I don't want to say woke
Yeah.
nowadays. Well, if someone wants to get Delta Dogs, how do they do it?
Oh, millennialcomic.com. We actually got a special going on. You can, we have our 4 volume books of Delta Dogs, where basically you have volume 1, 2, 3, and 4 for free shipping for a limited time only. So definitely check that out.
It looks like you got a character who looks like Huey Freeman 10 years later, right in the center with the fro.
Yeah, I mean he acts like him too. that
Uh,
that gangster feel is all there.
So I'm on the Millennial Comics website, and let's just say I want to buy a comic book. The first place to go would be here, and I got the choice: digital or physical. Let's say I wanted a digital comic book. Here, you said Delta Dogs issue number 1 digitally. Oh, you got it on sale and everything too. So
Yep.
$3, US dollars, right?
Yep.
I mean, just international audience. You never know. I could add that to my cart, put that in, check it out. You can put your email in, you can give them your credit card information, and this digital version could be in your hands immediately. Are you from Alabama, Arkansas, anywhere you from? Where's the Canadian options, huh?
Katie, oh man, that's yet to be added.
Canada,
Gotta
CAN.
experiment.
There we go. Got the Ontario. I live in the city of Toronto. Ooh, look at already prepared. Yes, put my postal code, and I can have this comic book lickety split. Look at that. It's that easy to support Millennial Comics.
It's right
Okay, so
there.
you got Delta Dogs. What else you got?
Man, so if you check out on the website, we also have the series called Kicks, where basically what if shoes gave you superpowers?
So you
And
really mean culture, like what you're trying to be integral to what is specific to Black Americans that isn't to the other Americans.
yeah, I mean, like again, the stuff that we grew up with, man, it's different. You know what I'm saying? Like Denzel Washington has said one time where, only us knows what that hot comb feels like, touching your scalp.
We all know what a hot comb hits your hair on a Sunday morning, what it smells like. You don't know nothing about
Dex.
See how everybody laugh? That's a cultural difference. That's not a race difference.
Shoes was just crazy back in like middle school, high school, stuff like that. And you when something hot came out, people used to stand in line and some more stuff. I'm like, man,
At
what if
midnight.
at midnight, man? I'm like, yo, but of course I was a geek. I was standing in line for like games and stuff like that. But anyways, yeah, so it was used to be really popular. And I was like, man, why has nobody made a comic book with kicks in it? Well, of course, we don't have any type of black owned comic book companies that has that control. So that's why I came up with the series Kicks. And man, yo, the creative stuff you can do with shoes, I was just like, man, yo, this is ridiculous. It's like an untapped market right now when it comes to our culture.
What are your inspirations outside of your own experience? Who are you? Who are the people that got you into this? Huey Freeman. So would that be Aaron Magruder?
I mean, yeah, people like that, and then of course the great Dwayne McDuffie, like his stuff, man. I can talk all day about his stuff. So Static, of course, Static, the cartoon. I actually seen that before I started really getting into comic books like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of just really like made me start doing research. Like yo, it's so many different characters out here, and I just started digging deeper and deeper. Then I got in the manga. But like yeah, Helm. That's one of my like main focuses of trying to get that storytelling first. Basically, that's like kind of our slogan is that we tell stories and we put the story in the forefront of things. So it's not just about like, hey, they're black. No, it's like, yo, it's a story and they so happen to be black. And that's kind of like what we kind of do to drive things forward. You know what I'm saying?
You're talking to somebody who's in the middle of writing and getting on the journey of getting into comic book selling. Story first is so important.
Yeah.
When we start our stories, both of us,
Mm.
the lead character's skin is dark. The supporting character's skin is dark. Like there's no need for some sort of like, let me submit some agenda in here. Every page on screen, you've got someone with melanin in their skin, and therefore you're forwarding the quote agenda.
Yeah.
Story first. Now, like you've accomplished what you needed to accomplish. Stay away from the tropes. Don't reinforce anything that needs to be reinforcing, and commit. You don't need to stop and educate a lesson about Harriet Tubman. And I'm saying that specifically because that's the thought that came up during my issue number 2. And I'm like, no, story first. And that's something that I was telling myself. So it's nice to know that that's the way you're thinking as well. You're never going to regret putting the story first instead of, I don't know, some sort of like a history lesson.
Yeah, I mean, because the thing is, everybody watched Static back in the day. Everybody watched Static Shock. Everybody watched the Justice League. That's Dwayne McDuffie had something to do with that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody loves these cartoons. White, black, anybody. So I want to make sure that anybody that wants to read a good story can pick up Delta Dogs and the series called Kicks. It's not like it's like, yo, we hate white people. Like, no, none of that. It's none of that.
Speak for yourself.
Oh shoot. That's on you, but yeah, like I don't want to put anything in there where it's just like, yo, I'm slandering somebody out there. Like, no, this is something that anybody can go through. You know what I'm saying? So we put that in the forefront, man, and you always gonna have an amazing story that anybody can enjoy.
So you got Kicks right over here, and look, you even have preview pages, just like Marvel used to do on their website, right? With the 3 free preview pages, and these, of course, are earlier in the comic book.
Yeah.
Nice.
Nothing too heavy spoilers, but yeah, something to kick it off. I should not throw that pun in there.
Yeah, I got it. I like the artwork. Who's the guy in charge of art over here?
Mark Mavetta. Him and his brother has been doing all my work since I started with Delta Dog issue 2. So they are an amazing team. I recommend them to anybody. Like the best people I've ever worked with, and that's what any artist. Like no shot at anybody else, but these guys I worked with the longest, and we work so well together. And I've grown of trying to work with the artist, and he's grown a lot trying to work with a writer. And it really shows in the pages where we like issue 2 and issue 20 of Delta Dogs looks completely different. Because you see so much growth between, the dynamic duo that we basically created amongst each other.
You're wrong for this right here. That the blue hero, he was all over the news. He'll save us. His name is. But that was the 3rd page. There's no 4th page. I gotta pay to watch.
Shoot!
I gotta know who the name of this. Well, I know what's coming next. I know the 4th page is gonna be a big splash page. It's gonna be just him standing there, and it's his name. You can't.
You know it. It's the classic. The praise turners, bro.
Why Millennial Comics? Like the name Millennial.
Yeah. So millennial, I feel like it's like a flavor. When we grew up in the '90s and stuff, and saw those different television shows, even the early '20s, uh, man, it's that flavor. I wanted to kind of reiterate that in Millennial Comics, the actual company, and all the different stuff that came out back then. Again, Static Shock, keep mentioning him,
Yeah.
the Justice League Unlimited. Um, Even before that, the X-Men cartoon, the Spider-Man cartoon, or any of the comic books that came out during that time period. I want to kind of like bring that back into the forefront of things.
Is it because of the period was so good, or is it just because, like, as a kid, those are fond memories of us, so we think the world was perfect then? Like, every generation will say, "Well,
Yeah.
man, when I was a boy, man, He-Man was the best," or "When I was a boy, that that Adam West Batman, that was the best." Everyone has
Yeah.
their "When I was a kid, it was always better."
Yeah, exactly, man. Just something that I feel like it was a really good time back then. I mean, I'm looking back now, just like, yo, like, wish I was a kid again.
But we did have it better. Before cell phones, you actually have to go outside to talk and interact. Now it's like, oh my god, the whole world is happening right here, and all
Yeah,
the negatives. You know what's gonna stick out to us, to the kids when we were kids? We would love to see all these prank videos and the things you're not supposed to do. That's what's
yeah.
gonna be catching. With the exception of Mr. Beast, everyone on their phone is a terrible influencer.
Hey man, you try to speak some volumes right there. But yeah, I mean, and that whole feeling. All right, so let me tell you this. So I started writing these comic books back way back when I was like say 9 years old. So when I started, updating my stuff because I learned a lot of different stuff when I got older, I had to figure out, oh man, we got cell phones now. So I had to start changing the story up to kind of like make it fit more towards this time period, if that makes sense. But you start looking at the names, some of the names kind of slipped through the cracks, but I had to update maybe some of the names, and you start to see different stuff where it's like, yo, that's kind of like, I'll say corny, but it kind of is corny because like one of the heroes that was in Delta Dogs is called Prince Justice. Prince Justice is like a corny name.
Mhm.
So stuff like that, man, again, has that 90s feel or that early 2000 feel for millennials of what, they'll be basically right back into what they're used to, basically.
With Prince Justice, just like no one says Captain America all the time, it's usually Cap. What
Yeah,
would be the shorter one? Would it just be Prince?
that's a good question. Sure. It'd be Prince. Like, yeah, like, yo, what up, Prince? Like, you gotta make it sound cool nowadays.
Mm. Not to self plug myself too much, but yes, I also thought about the cell phones and what am I going to do in my story? What year should my story begin? And cell phones were something that changed. Satellites. Okay, I had to write a story that didn't have them. So one day when I push my thing, you'll notice that there was no cell phones in my storyline, in my plot.
Yeah, like what? Seriously, what superhero can really get away with having a secret identity nowadays?
There's things you got to think about, man. I'm so
Yeah.
happy Black Comic Lords put me in touch with you, Vonnell, because I didn't know you'd be, like this. Besides Black Comic Lords and myself, what else have been your effective promotional strategies?
So for real, the most effective is just for me, right? Is getting out there to the Comic Cons, man. Like talking to people, getting a crowd around your table, man. It really just shows people that like, yo, look, this is real, okay? Because some people, to be honest, when I was online, they didn't think I was real. They thought that I was some type of scam or like, hey, like, yo, this is Marvel and DC. I'll just go to their website and buy it. I'm like, no, this isn't Marvel or DC. This is Millennial Comics. So just getting out there, and the people where people's talking about you throughout the Comic Con. You started to see people get to
Wow.
the table, yeah, and then start to follow you. That's when I get my most followers, and that's when I get my most sales. Like I remember I had sold like it was like over 200 and something books, man, and at a very small Comic Con, and that's why I think I excel the most at versus again being online trying to pay for ads or trying to come up with some type of viral video or something like that. It's that's just wasn't me as far as a creator and as a comic book indie creator, you kind of got to be a little bit of everything.
Oh yeah.
You have to be an editor, you have to be a amazing writer, sometimes even amazing artists because you can't afford an artist, and just and whatnot. And you gotta
You got to
have
be a salesman. You got to be community oriented. You got to be a little bit popular with a following online also. But then the personal experiences that you have with people, you know, you gotta take risks. You got to
yeah,
know, man, do I give this book to this guy at a discounted price or even for free, knowing that his word of mouth will spread? Is
yeah,
it worth it? I don't know.
yeah, and that's something that you have to learn, just straight up experience. You have to go through a lot of different failures just so you can have a chance at actual competing with the other creators and stuff like that. Um, but for me, again, it really just depends on who you are as a person to kind of see where you fit in at in the marketplace. Well, if you're a really good editor, then you can start creating videos and you don't even have to be in front of camera at all. Or if you're a really good spokesperson, then you can just start creating videos on fly, even creating videos while you walking down the street, talking about your comic book and stuff like that, or driving in a car. And you don't have to show your face at all. You know, so stuff like that. And when you're an artist, maybe you can go live and showcase your stuff like that. It's different marketing stuff, and it really just depends on the person versus like, hey, this is the only way, you know, this is the only way it'll work. It really just, you got to check yourself and see what you're really good at and then move accordingly.
So take me through a Comic Con. Oh, first of all, where are you located? Which cons are the ones you're going to?
VA, so like Tidewater Comic Con, Hampton Comic Con. Um, we also have some stuff in like DC. So I'm going to Awesome Con is my next con we're going to.
And what's the date for that?
From the 8th of March through the 10th.
Okay, that's coming up right up. So if anyone's in the Washington area, that's where you go.
Yeah, Awesome Con.
Now,
Check me
now
out.
take me through a con, okay? You're at Awesome Con. A crowd starts piling up. It's 4 people, now it's 6 people. What is in your head while these strangers from a town you're not from, the potential customers, what do you think? Do you go, okay, if I can get 3 sales, then that's good? What's a successful interaction versus an unsuccessful interaction where a crowd starts crowding?
Okay, so the more authentic you're being, the better you're gonna be off. Again, you have to be. I know it's a lot of introverts that's the creators. You got to kind of get out of that. So you have to be exciting. You have to be a person that people really like to gravitate towards. So while you're talking about your book, sometimes you have to learn the actual person that you're talking to, and like, okay, because my book is a lot of different things, but if it doesn't fit that particular person, then you gotta kind of you gotta kind of switch gears. So hey, are they a collector? Okay, we start speaking like, yo, this is a hard book cover, so it's a great condition. It have plastic over it, so you can keep it safe, tight, and then you can save it and sell it whatever the next time you want to flip books or whatever the case may be. You're talking to a person that's looking for some amazing art. I show them the amazing art pages, but sometimes you have to go off of asking them questions before you start spilling out your story, because sometimes people will just start to wander off in their mind while you're telling them stories, once you just jump right into it. So that's will determine basically of a successful sale versus a non-successful sale. And also you have to see what is, are they ready to spend money, or if they're not, or they're not. So for example, digital sales is always going to be cheaper than physical sales for me. So sometimes depending on who comes to my table, what type of vibe I get from them, I'm like, hey, look, you can check out our free digital copy, so you can check out the series if you want to go ahead and get plugged in and get on the wonderful world of Delta Dogs.
Yeah.
Or, if I see like, yo, this man is ready to go ahead and buy the full series, buy a t-shirt and whatnot, I'm like, yo, this is a good squad. This is a bundle deal. It's simple, it's easy. You get our full bundle gives you caught up with a full series, and I'll throw in a t-shirt for free. So instead of saying like, hey, if you want to buy issue 1, it's $25. I mean, volume 1 is $25, and then volume 2 will be $50, and then volume 3, like, instead of taking them through all that, you want to be quick.
Selling a t-shirt is like patriotism almost, because once every few weeks they're going to be in their drawer, pull it up and put that thing on, and they'll feel like, I don't know, an association. And you didn't even sell anything to them on that day, but they're thinking about you.
Yeah, and that's why you gotta be blunt about things as well. Got to collect the emails. You got to collect so you can stay in touch with the people that connected with you that showed interest.
And then how do you not let them down? Like, So I would hate to go to a convention. I talked to Vonnell, he convinced me, and then next year I don't see any more Millennial Comics coming out. Like, how could you tell this guy right here that the investment I'm committing in you, every dollar I go to, is going to somewhere like what's coming down the road? What is the best case scenario? What is the goal?
Yeah. So when you're talking to people and kind of giving them what's going on in the pipeline, of course, everything is going to be shaky because it's all on you as the creator. So when you're talking, you got to be like, hey, um, this stuff is coming on as long as I have your support. It's really it's all comes with support. So you
Right.
kind of put it on them as well. Like, hey, look, um, everything you're doing, I really appreciate you for your support, and I'll try to get all these things done. So
And I
when they
actually
got
need to hear that, Vonnell, because I don't like knowing that my dollar's going to a dead end about some guy who wasn't really committed. I'd rather hear about how much you sacrifice and how you live out your car and how you do all of this so that you can be successful. So that I know that if he's just in the black, not the
mm,
black, you know what I mean. If you're in debt, that doesn't mean you're going to stop because it's not profitable anymore. I need to know that you're still trying, and there's nothing that will stop you from making this franchise the most successful it could be.
yeah, yeah. I mean, for me, when they come to my table and they hear I got like over 20 books, they know the dedication is there. Um, so as far as if you only had one book, if you had to really convince somebody, like, hey, look, I'm here right now and I'm trying my best. And you're going to get every single book that I put out, whether it be a month or two in between, you're going to get the best quality work that I can produce at that time. Kind of like level with them and talk to them as a person because, they're not just a customer, they're a person. They want to, because we know how it is in the comic book community. We know that things are very, very shaky. It's very, very hard to get in, and
Yeah,
people they disappear.
which irks me. But seeing a table where there's 20 books, seeing
Mhm.
it, seeing you and hearing you tell me, you said once every 2 months or once a month.
Like months in between.
What's so
Because
what's your release what's the largest gap you've gone without releasing?
man,
Because
so
the quicker it is, the better it sounds to me, as opposed to I took 3 years off and then I came back with kicks.
yeah, so to be honest with you, with Delta Dogs, it has been a year gap for me.
Okay,
And before then, when I was this is all coming out, and this is because I got hurt in my job and some more stuff happened. So I couldn't fund it like I wanted to. But aside from the personal stuff,
right.
the when I was coming out with books, when I first hit the ground running, I was coming out with a book a month. And I did that all the way until issue 20. And then that's when I had
That's
basically
amazing. That's
yeah,
so nice to hear that you did that, and then the sales warranted doing that as well. It means like, okay, so you didn't finish your answer. Keep going.
no. So during that whole process, again, since I'm a curator, you don't really have too many different influences that want to give you all the time of the day before you make all the crazy mistakes. Because say issue one took me about 6 months just to get it together, right? And that's after the artwork was done. The artwork was very, very much like one of the things that almost broke the company because of the artist getting sick, me having a whole bunch of money tied in, and me making promises and stuff like that. And I couldn't fulfill that because the artist wasn't like, he'll send me a page a month, and it was like that. So I was like, man, there's no turning back. I know I'm not gonna be able to get my money back or anything. So I just had to work with what I got, and of course, that's when we switched to Mark Mavetta, which
Okay.
thank God for him. So during that whole process, again, you have to learn
Yeah.
that, hey, look, you can't pay money up front. That was one of the times I had to learn. You can't. You have to have an actual team when it comes to printing. You have to set up your pages for printing and stuff like that. Make sure any art and stuff won't get cut off. I went with problems with issue 2 and issue 3 for that. And that kind of like gave a little bit more time. They got pushed back and stuff like that. But at the same time, through all my mistakes, I was always still writing. I was always still trying to draw and make the money to actually produce this stuff because while we're trying to sell at Comic Cons, the artist still needs his money. So that's to meet those deadlines, to be more consistent, because I've heard those stories where the writer or the creator, I'm sorry, the creator would just vanish like the avatar.
Oh yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
yeah, so I was like, man, I don't want to make people go through that. And then also the comic book shops, the owners was on my back as well. They was like, hey, look, don't you mess up my customers, or you're going to be out my store as soon as you late and stuff like that. So
So
I was,
you had you were inventory in comic book shops.
yeah,
They ordered from you, but it was a little bit different than the regular orders. They would just speak directly to you.
yeah. So it was comic book shops that was in the local area. So I was driving my car through each one of them. I don't care if it was like late at night, whatever the case may be. I was going to each comic book shops as soon as I got the prints.
Woo! We
Yeah,
love
it was
hearing that.
like
Sitting ovation, because that's amazing. Yeah.
that.
You're driving over to shop. I got
Yeah,
this comic. Was Delta Dogs? Was it? And you're
yeah.
going, look, people are going to be interested in this. I'm going to put it on your shelf. How do you convince a guy to take a chance on you? And how many like floppies would they? How many individual issues would they permit to be on the shelves? And did you say, listen, if they sell, then I get money. If they don't sell, I don't get money. Like, how do you negotiate that? Because I'm sure they're like, well, there's no name. You think people are just gonna buy a comic book off of the cover and think that like this isn't the 1970s anymore? It's gonna take a lot more to get your comic book into the customer's hand. Why? Like, how did that work? That's such an amazing accomplishment. It's a feat to actually get your comic book on the shops, in the
Yeah.
shops on the shelves.
Yeah. So let me tell you my best experience. Let me tell you my worst experience. Worst experience. Well, I'll probably have to tell you my second worst experience. So worst experience was when I walked in a comic book shop. I had the comic book in hand, and the dude, before I even said a word, the dude was just like, "No, I'm good." Like he just waved me on.
So other
And I
people
was like,
ruined it for you.
yeah, I was like, bro, that was like one of my first comic book shops I ever went to
Oh,
sell my comic book.
to sell your comic book, but
Yeah, the comic book.
it's not like you know the guy.
Yeah, no, I didn't know the guy. I wanted to go to to kind of test the water. So I went to a city far out in a city where I was just like, okay, let me just try the waters and stuff like that. And again, I walked in, showed him like had the book in my hand. He saw my book, and then he looked at me and he was like, no, I'm okay. And he just waved me on. I was like, you don't want to hear that he interrupted me. He was like, no, I'm good. Thank you. Good. I was just like, that's the worst experience. But then the second to that, it was an old white guy, and I walked in his comic book shop. He basically gave me the whole spiel, like, "Hey, look, if you ain't getting a dime, you're not gonna make it." So I was just like, "Okay, maybe I could try just kind of start with your store." It's very difficult to get into diamond at the time. It's still kind of like right now, but I don't know the full process of trying to get into diamond. Because again, you don't have mentors out here. I'm just going on my own. So I was talking to the guy. I was like, "Hey, look, if you give me a shot, I will get these books in your store." So it's like, "Look, man, the last guy came in here. He came in here and he dropped one book off. Never saw him again. Guy before that dropped off 2 books. Never saw him again. So how I know you're gonna come back and this and that, right?" So it was first it was an initial no. So I came back. This time I got 3 books. So now he's like, okay, all right, you know what? So we started with 3 books in the store. Those sold 4 books the next month. He's like, oh man, like he was surprised. He was just like, what? Like, how are you doing this? So I don't know. He thought I was selling drugs or whatever the case may be.
Oh my god!
But of
I don't
course,
think that's what he meant. I
I
think he was
don't know.
going off of the old books that he did prior, didn't never worked out, and he's
Yeah,
surprised that it was working out. I don't think he's
like
going there.
yeah, I don't know what it was. I always had a hoodie on. I had had one of my Millennial Comics hoodie or Delta Dogs hoodie, something like that.
Yeah,
So yeah, a black guy, old white dude. I don't know what was going on through his mind, but he was very surprised. So um, then it came to a point where I had to start signing my books to the guy because the people that will put in their pool, their pool list. So I was having that type of thing, So it turned into one of my biggest shops that I started really selling in. And
amazing.
my best interaction with a comic book shop owner is what a dude just wanted to help out. So he gave me 100% of the sales. So I was like, man, wow. So that's
Was that an old white guy?
yeah. He just wanted to see. Oh no, he was actually an Asian dude.
Okay.
I never really met not in person, a black owned comic book shop, but again, when I was talking to the guy, he's like, "Hey, look, I want every single one of them. I'll put it in the shop. I'll put it. I had my own section in the comic book shop. He was really trying to help me out. He told this wasn't just putting it on a comic book shelf and just trying to let it sell on its own by the art. And then also it being a bad spot because I had to deal with that as well. This was a like, hey, look, you have your own section. If you had a big old poster, I'll put out, the front. He was really trying to,
Oh,
yeah. And he started talking to his customers. And he's like, hey, look, Delta Dogs is over there. He's a local, this and that. I'm like, man, like he was my dude. That's my best interaction with the comic book shop owner.
and that's a rare interaction. No one trying to get into comic books should think that is going to be the interaction that you're going to have with the
Not
shop.
at all.
If
Not
you
at
have a
all.
poster, I would put it here in your own section. And wow. You mentioned diamond earlier to the people who don't understand what diamond means because
Yeah.
the other guy told you without diamond you're not going to go anywhere. What did he mean?
Yeah, so Diamond is, of course, the biggest distributor, especially at the time I was putting books inside different comic book shops. Marvel and DC was going to Diamond exclusively to get distribution to get into different comic book shops worldwide.
Every shop needed to order through diamond. So while they're going through Marvel, DC, Image, then down there it's going to say Millennial Comics. That's what they were trying to say is the best way to get into ordering comics because it's going to be in the same shipment when they go to the same warehouse outside the airport to collect their comics that they're going to sell that Wednesday. It would just be there. So it's like so what the comic shops are trying to say is be part of our every week routine and
Yeah,
diamond.
yeah, and because I'll even start calling out to like Florida, I'll start calling out to Cali and Chicago, any different comic book shops to see if I can maybe start shipping books instead of just driving all over the place, right, in my local area. So most of those calls that I called, I remember I had called like 40 different comic book shops in one day. It was a lot. But every single one of them was telling me like, hey, look, I'm not going to accept your stuff unless you get into Diamond. If you're in Diamond right now, I'll buy 50 of you. 50 of your
Really?
books. Yeah,
Well,
it was like
that's an
that.
exaggeration. I'll buy 50
It's
of
an
your books.
exaggeration.
Yeah.
But I took his word for it. I tried getting a Diamond and they wouldn't take it. They wouldn't take it. I got 20 books in. They still wouldn't take it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
What are the requirements? Because they need people. They need books, right?
Yeah. I absolutely met every single requirement for them. Their reason was saying because I wasn't, they say I need to team up with a bigger publisher so I can, I guess, become more well known. I'm
Do
not
you
too,
mean if you were doing Marvel voices and you had a story, they would say, okay, they
yeah.
certified you? That's what they're looking
Yeah,
for?
verified. There we go. I need to be verified from a bigger company, basically.
Do they ask about your social media followers?
I'm pretty sure they looked them up. I'm pretty sure that, if anything, it still didn't really persuade them to actually give me the green light.
Let me ask you about DC Power, Marvel Voices, the annual Black History Month anthologies. The stories really don't go anywhere. But if you were asked by Marvel and DC, someone reached out and they said, look, you want to work on this project? Do you say, yes, I'll take it? Or do you say, give me something like an ongoing series? Give me a limited series. Give me a whole issue, not 6 pages. I'd rather do something on my own than do a story that doesn't really count. I'm saying that it don't really count. But I'm sure they think that it's really important to get Mr. Terrific's breakfast in a comic book this February. What do you think? Would you take that job?
So I mean, really, just depend on the goal. If it's trying to get that, hey, look, I worked for Marvel and DC before, to get that clarification, definitely. I mean, to get your foot in the door, depending on which path you want to go down, yeah, definitely take the job. But of course, if you're trying to look for something more like, hey, look, you're going for the big thing. You're not trying to go for something that,
You want Batman?
yeah, you're trying to go for Batman. Or I mean, well, not even the top black writers could even get Batman. But yeah, if you want to go for somebody like Mr. Terrific, the only characters that kind of really they let black people write on for mainstreams. Yeah, you want to go for those, great. But if you want to get your foot in the door to try to get some type of recognition for your talent, then yeah, you might want to take those 5 pages.
I can dig that answer completely. You want to be in their good graces, and you don't want to burn a bridge. And if this gets you that certification, even though it doesn't mean nothing to us,
Yeah.
some people need it. Some people paid money to get the blue Twitter check mark because
Yeah.
they view it as validating. Hey, this was an amazing conversation with Millennial Comics. Vonnell, thanks to Paul from Black Comic Lords for connecting us this way. I hope you get digital sales all over the, because you know how many millions of people watch Chillmonger, right? You get digital sales like crazy.
Oh yeah.
Off of this interview right here.
Hey.
MillennialComics.com. That's where to go.
Oh yeah. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you for having me on the show. Of course, again, shout out to you, Paul. Thank you for connecting us. And man, I'm honored.